Welcome to Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching, the podcast that builds on conventional wisdom and adds a fresh perspective on this ever-evolving field of coaching.
Are you fed up with advice that doesn't really get to the heart of the matter or really get you?
Whether you're a reluctant or seasoned leader, this podcast is for you.
Embark on a journey of actionable insights, harness untapped potential, and learn to develop a mindset that will transform you permanently.
Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching, where we shatter boundaries and awaken the confident and compassionate leader within.
Hey, Marty, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
You and I just were talking about this, but let's let the viewer listener in on our intention for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to interview you about your approach and philosophy when you're working with coaching clients.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd ask you some questions about that, but maybe what I'll do is I'll start with some questions that get some background about how you got into coaching and how long you've been doing and that sort of thing. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. I'm honored that you ask.
So let me just throw that out there. When did you start coaching?
I started coaching in the fall of 1998.
And why did you start coaching?
The short story is that I was in a self-development program, and part of that program, or the extension of that program, if you went on to work with that company, was you would have a coach. And I went on to see what that was like. And I found that having a coach really helped me to get beyond where I was, to achieve things I didn't think I could. And I thought that was an amazing relationship. And I started thinking about how, given my background in critical thinking, I did have a PhD in philosophy, and how the reason why I left philosophy was because I wanted to work more intimately with other human beings, not be alone in a library all day. I was like, okay, I can use my critical thinking skills. I can use my desire to impact other human beings and make a difference. And this thing, coaching, seems to be a good avenue to do that. So then I went from there to go get myself trained as a coach. So those are the reasons why. I think that helped facilitate the why of that, give it a little bit more specificity, was that in that self-development program, I became friends with a woman who also was dating a guy. The guy was a motivational speaker who had come out of being a financial advisor and just said that he was good at that. He was especially good at sales. And then he realized that he really had this talent for motivational speaking. And he loved creating those speeches and going into corporations and getting paid lots of money to give a really inspiring hour talk. So she was dating him. She was my friend. And she said, you know what? The three of us ought to go into business together. Marty wants to be a coach. I'll run the office. She's very thorough, operations kind of management person, and he could be our cash cow, drum up the business. And so we talked about it, and within a couple of months, we were registered in the state of Delaware, and that's how it worked between the three. So how this contributes to my why is that the clients that he was bringing in as potential coaching clients for me, they were all coming from financial services. And so that also was something at the time I was very concerned about the economy. That hasn't changed, by the way, but it's in a different way now. And this is great. I can get in at the not quite ground, but second or third floor of the economy. These financial advisors. If I can infuse some love into their world, then that'll spread into the economy. And so that contributed to my oh yes, this is why I'm here in this moment. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I've heard bits and pieces of that story before, but it strikes me, although I've known that you've been coaching for a long time, I didn't realize it had been 25 years.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. This is an odd question maybe, but I'm inspired to ask it anyhow. So here we are, 2023. Dr. Martin Kettelhut, PhD, goes back to 1998 and has a conversation with brand new coach, Martin Kettelhut, PhD.
Wow.
What advice would you give him?
Gosh, you know what? I'm coming up blank. Not blank, but full.
Let's
Like,
turn it around. Let's turn it around.
like I would tell him, you're right. I would just encourage him, like, you're right on track. You got a great future ahead of you. Don't change a thing.
Oh, cool. So let's just try the turnaround anyhow. Let's change the circumstances. Still same thing. You come back and visit your 1998 version of yourself. And you're the guide. What questions would you have asked this 25-year tenured guide?
I definitely would have asked something around what is the key to getting people to take on coaching, to take on their lives, to take on the identity shift that it's going to mean. Because I think a lot of times we let time that it's going to take, or the money it's going to cost, or that's just not me kind of conversations. Like, I would never be able to, I can't see myself doing those great things. All those conversations. My younger self would want to ask this more experienced coach, what's the best way to help people over that threshold?
And the threshold again, how do you define that?
Taking on coaching.
Yeah. So what is the key to getting people to take on coaching? All right.
Yeah, that was something I was struggling with at the time.
Let's do a little role playing here then.
Okay.
1998, Marty. And now you've just showed up. I guess I was polishing a bottle or something, and you came out of it and you said, I am the Martin Kettelhut from 2023. I've been coaching for 25 years now, and I'm here to answer one question for you. And as Marty, I say to you, what is the key to getting people to take on coaching? How would you answer?
The answer to that question became the name of my company. It's listening. Right? You don't have to lift them over that threshold. You don't need to twist their arm over that. So there's no effort at all in getting over that threshold. You just want to get super curious, get in their world, get as if you were in their skin and you could feel what they're feeling. That's all there is to it. The magic happens after that, as you do that. That's the whole point. It's really about just being so interested and for them. Like, I'm here for you. I'm for your success. And so what is it that you're troubling about? What is it you're really wrestling with? Just really be in their world. And that, if that doesn't move them over the threshold, then they weren't meant to be.
Okay. So as young 1998 Marty, I might say something like, I love that. And it's hard to believe that's all it takes. Just getting curious. But that's been your experience for 25 years, huh?
That's all the results that I've produced, not only in getting people over that threshold and taking on coaching, but also producing twice as much as they did in the last year. That's often a goal that financial advisors have, is I want to double my revenue, or transforming a marriage, or a relationship to a child, or any goal that anybody's ever brought me. It wasn't because we lifted a bunch of heavy weights, or there's nothing Sisyphean about this. It was all because I just got interested. It's also what got me to accomplish the results in my life, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which I consider one of my highest achievements. It happened because I had a client that wanted to do it. In fact, I had 3 clients who wanted to do it one year. They all worked for the same firm, but in different offices. And I started asking, well, how do you do that? I had never climbed a mountain before. I had no idea. And I got deeply curious and really pursued it with them. And before you know it, I was on a plane to Nairobi.
Wow. Marty, why don't I know that? Maybe you've told me that story, but I've never heard it before. Did not know that you had done that.
Yeah.
So my listening shifted as soon as you said that you had done that. And now I can't even remember the question. Do you remember the question you were just answering?
if that's really all there is to it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. And so that you're saying that getting curious and listening was the key for how you were able to accomplish what you've accomplished.
Exactly. And even once you're in Nairobi and you take the bus to the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro, and now you got to march up the mountain, even there, it was a matter of listening. You have to listen to your body. You get up above where there's really enough, the same kind of oxygen you're used to breathing, and you have to listen to your body and slow down and pace yourself. And you have to listen to the guide who's telling you how you're going to do this and what to look out for. And I've really just found that anything that I'm going to produce in this life, it's about listening. And this goes back to a deep spiritual belief of mine, which is that the whole universe, the manifest universe that we're walking around in every day, it emanates from this basic vibration, this sound of God, just having a great time or being blissed out. And that unrolls into the bliss that is our universe. And so that's what we're listening for, is how do things work naturally? What's the way that this is meant to be? And you follow that and your life just unfolds beautifully.
Fascinating. So stepping back now out of role, I'm your fellow coach and friend, Bill Tierney. I'm no longer 1998 Martin. If you could summarize your coaching philosophy, I'll ask you about that first, and then I have a follow-up question as well. What would that be? How would you summarize your coaching philosophy?
I don't know if this is unique. I doubt it. But my philosophy is that everything is in the client. The client is capable of anything, and it's all in the client. And so that's why listening is so important, because you're drawing out their wisdom, you're drawing out their insight, you're drawing out their ability to take action, all of it. And so the philosophy is that get out of the way, get other things out of the way, make the way, because it's all in the client and just waiting to bloom.
You're saying get yourself out of the way, you as the coach?
Oh yeah, oftentimes you have to get yourself out of the way.
Can you think of an experience, like a case study, where obviously you're not going to name the client, but where you might have found yourself getting in the way, recognized it, got out of the way, and were able to help them tap into what was in them that helped them to achieve what they wanted to achieve?
Yeah. One that just came to mind as you were asking the question, I haven't talked about this client in a long time. She had deep trust issues. And so that was what was in the way of being on team in a corporation and managing it. And that's principally why why her employer sent her to me, actually. And she had that same issue with me. She didn't trust me. Like, how do you know that's what I should do? Why do you think that this is the way that should do? What makes you think that I have that trust issue even, right? And so I had to get out of the way, in the sense that I said, I came clean with how crucial trust is to the coaching process, and that I wouldn't be able to work, and nobody's going to be able to work with you if you can't put even a little smidge of trust and see how it goes, and then maybe add a little more later. But if you can't go there, then this won't work. So I got myself out of the way. I said, I'm taking myself out of this relationship, because you have to trust, or we're not going to get anywhere. And so that, she went home, she thought about that. Like, that was struck her like a ton of bricks, in fact. And she came back and she said, I think you're right. And she started telling me stories about with her landlord and with her neighbors and with her mother and all these other people, where trust was the thing in the way. And she said, you're right. I don't think I can take another step forward in this life if I don't learn to trust.
Wow. What did you mean when you said, I'm going to take myself out of this relationship?
I can't coach you.
Oh, I see. You withdrew your offer to coach her.
That's exactly what I did.
I see. And that left her with realizing
that
that
she was back in her life with all these same trust issues and no help.
Yeah. That's profound. Great example. So you actually may have answered, just in your case study example there, this next question, which is, what is your coaching approach? You've told me about your philosophy, and you've given me an example of what that might look like. What is your approach? Let's just say I'm a brand new client, and you and I have had a conversation, and it looks like it's worth exploring whether or not you and I can work together. What are you going to do in this first session that we have together?
I always ask 3 questions. They seem to work for me. They're not genies in bottles, but I ask the client what they like about themselves, the prospect. What do you like about yourself? What could be improved about you? And what gives you satisfaction?
So what do you like about yourself? What could be improved in you, and what gives you satisfaction? And so let's just say that your prospect transparently and vulnerably discloses those answers to those questions. What does that tell you? What do you do with that information?
Great. So what they like about themselves tells me what they're good at. That tells me what their natural ability. I'm listening for natural abilities, learned skills, the things that they do well and enjoy, because they are the things that we enjoy almost always. And so those are the things that I can always work through those toward the results that they want. That's the basic line of thought there. And what could be improved about you, that's always going to tell me what's in the way, right? It always reveals where their insecurity is, basically. What they don't think is fully godlike about themselves comes out when you ask that question. What's not aligned with their true, infinitely capable self. It comes out right there when you ask that question. And so that's usually where most of the work, even if they're with me for years after, that's where most of the work happens, is on that second question, is dispossessing them of those beliefs.
Yes. I've got a follow-up question to that. But I want to make sure I capture those 3 questions again. Tell me, please, in order you asked those questions. What are the 3 questions?
What do you like about yourself?
Okay, that's number 1.
What could be improved about you?
Okay, that's number 2.
And sometimes sometimes I have to tweak that one a little bit to make it a little bit more ornery, so it gets under their skin and they put more energy into responding. And I say, what don't you like about yourself? Other people don't, that's too harsh, and they'd rather just talk about what could be improved. It's a little easier to take. But for some people, I have to nudge a little bit and say, what do you not like about yourself?
You nudging. What's the 3rd question?
What gives you satisfaction?
Oh, what gives you satisfaction? Yeah, great. Very good. There's a couple of things there's a lot that you've said here that I just love. But there's a couple of things I want to make sure that when I get this video and audio edited, we really underline and put in show notes. The first one is, what is the key to getting people to take on coaching? Get them over that threshold. And then the second one is these 3 questions. What do you like about yourself? What could be improved about yourself? And then what gives you satisfaction? I want to invite the viewer, listener to this podcast episode to ask themselves those questions. And if you would be so brave and courageous as to email either me or Marty with those answers, or put them in comments wherever you find this podcast, you might just bring your comments up in one of the episodes and talk right back to you through one of these episodes of this podcast.
Exactly. Or if you'd rather have that conversation in private, get in touch and say so.
Yep. Very good. And how can they get in touch with you, Marty?
Best way is to go to listeningisthekey.com. Listening is the key, as if it were one word.com. And then when you're on the site for a couple seconds, a little pop-up comes up and says, do you want to get in touch with Dr. Kettelhut? And
that's how you do it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's just have you, if you're inclined to send in your answers, send them directly to Marty by going to listeningisthekey.com. Wait for that little irritating pop-up to come up so you can tell Marty that you want to talk to him.
That's right.
What else do you want folks to know? What would you like me to know about your coaching philosophy, your coaching approach, or Anything else that you can think of that you'd like us to know about how you help people?
Well, sometimes people want to know, what's your process? What's the program? People often say that. What's your program? And I've been doing this for a quarter of a century, so I have lots of tools and lots of exercises, lots of programs and processes that I've learned or made up that work. But I don't have a one size fits all thing that, that a lot of people do, and those are great. But since listening is the key, I'm going to be in this like a partner. And so at every stage, we're checking in and seeing what's needed now, not what, you're okay, you did step 5, let's do step 6 now. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be constantly customized to your need this week. And it doesn't mean that we don't have ongoing projects that we're working on. We definitely do. And some of these exercises take a couple of weeks or months, but I don't have a one size fits all way of doing it. So it's going to be customized. And that's, I think, ultimately, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, that's why people usually want to stay with me longer than just to the end of a 3-month program or a 6-month commitment where it's all the same thing for every client that comes through. People stay with me. They don't have to, obviously, but they often do stay with me longer because life keeps going on and they keep wanting to have this partner in their life.
I think I have one more question for you. And then, of course, I'm going to invite you to say anything more that you'd like to say. But what do you believe about why your approach helps? First of all, let me tell you what I understand about your approach. That is that listening is the key. That your listening is what makes the difference for people and gets them to take on coaching. Once they have taken on coaching, how does your listening help them to get the results that they want?
Very good question. So there are two poles, basically, that the dynamic of producing what they want to produce, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, comes out of. And the first pole comes out in that second question that I asked in our first conversation. It's that internal resistance. It's that internal critic, right? And there might be a whole family of criticisms in there and things that they say about themselves and believe about themselves that I call it all your secret identity, because you don't talk to anybody about these things, right? So that's on one end, and we go to work on like how true these things are and how to attend to them, or if they could be let go, what would that take? So completing is what I call it, putting closure on all of that resistance to the real richness and fire of life. And then the other pole that we have to work with to produce the results is your purpose. You weren't born on accident, and nothing in the universe is not related to the things around it in intimate ways. And there's a reason why the flower has a pretty color and a nice smell, right? It has purpose. Everything in the universe has purpose, including you, the human being that you are. And so we get clear on what your purpose is by various means, by the way, that I can't go into right now, but all my clients know what their purpose is. And so it's in this dynamic of putting closure on the things you say to yourself that keep you from producing the result you want and getting aligned with your purpose, that all of the results come out of that.
Those two poles are, I'll use different words, but if it seems more like that takes it away from what you just stated, I'd like you to correct me. One pole is to complete what's incomplete, and the other pole is finding purpose.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So another bullet point for show notes.
That's exactly right. Those are absolutely key.
Completing what's incomplete and finding purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else that you want to say before we end this episode?
Just that I think it's a really amazing thing, coaching itself. It's part of the reason why I love doing it, because from the moment I was introduced to it in that self-development program back in 97, right, the year before I started doing this, it's wow, what we can be for each other on both sides of that partnership. I think that, and I'll be brief in this, but I think it goes back to a long history. If you look at culture and the way our culture got to where it is, we've been moving more to an industrialized, hierarchicalized, and now information oriented way of life. And in all of that, because of the dualities that build those hierarchies and that information is processed through, we've weeded out something that was there way back when we were indigenous or aboriginal people. We all had mentors. It was built into life that you studied with your mentor, you learned their trade or this way of contributing to society, and there was a very intimate partnership there that now you go through the education system or the industrial complex or the corporate, and that all gets eliminate it. Or if you get to the top and you say, gosh, I really need somebody to talk to, they'll pay to bring somebody in like you or me, Bill. But it's not an integral part of the way society works anymore. That's been weeded out. And we didn't notice that we needed that. And so I love that it's coming back and that the coaching industry is burgeoning, because I think it is integral to what human beings need. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Marty, I love your language. I love your vocabulary. I love your brain. I love your heart. Love you, brother.
Thank you,
And I
Bill.
so appreciate you telling me and everybody that's listening more about how you help people. And finally, one last question. I thought I was done, but I have one more question. That is, I know you're always up to some big project. What's your big project right now? Do you want to talk about it at all?
Oh, I'd love to. I can go on and on about it. Yes, I'm writing a book and teaching a group coaching program on leadership. They're both on leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that's, first of all, something that I've been studying all along, and just starting to bring it together into a curriculum, and it's also something that we sorely need right now in our world. And I don't mean to be critical of our leaders. They're doing the best they can, but we haven't studied it. And I'm studying it now, and I'm learning. And I'll close by saying the main thing that I'm learning is that it's not something that, like a handful of characteristics of certain people. Like, oh, he's a leader. He's got a charisma. He's got intelligence. He's got boldness. Leadership is a relational entity. Leadership occurs in a relationship between a leader, the led people, the people who are being led, and a future that they all come together to produce. It's a triadic relationship. It's a threesome between the future, the people who are being led, and the leader. And that's where that leadership is, that trinamic.
Wow, what a great way to describe that. I'd never heard it that way. So one more time, I'm going to make sure I get this in show notes as well. What makes up that triad?
The leader,
the led,
and the future they're creating together. Yes.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And to contact you one more time, your website, please.
And without that, you might get enforcement or victimhood,
or management, or
right.
That's not leadership, especially.
Right. Or somebody who's self-promoting and I'm a leader in the industry because I'm the loudest and the one who has the most expensive advertising. But is anybody following? Right? Is anybody engaged in what you're doing besides you?
I have and one more time, website is?
Listening is the key. Just write it out as if for one word with no spaces, and that'll get you to me.
.com. Yeah, Martin Kettelhut. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to me.
Thanks for asking.
Episode. We'll talk then. Maybe we'll do this in reverse next time.
Let's do.
Okay, sounds good. Bye. That concludes another episode of Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to fuel your leadership journey.
Remember, true leadership is not about you. It's about empowering others.
Take your insights to heart and cultivate a leadership mindset that will transform you from within.
Thank you for joining us on this quest to leadership excellence. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where we delve deeper into the art of leadership.
Until next time, remember that you have the power to lead with confidence and compassion from the inside out.